Hey, Michelle here with Full Well Counseling and Neurofeedback in Hoover to talk about parenting in a tech-filled world. So this is part of a series of presentations we're doing to share with parents resources. This is not prescriptive. We are not telling you if you do XYZ, then you will have no trouble with your teens, with your children, that all things will be good. That's not what we're doing with this series, but we are hopefully making resources available to parents so that they're able to really navigate some of this parenting stuff with a few more resources, with a little more education. And we hope, again, this is descriptive. This is not us telling you if we know how to make parenting super simple, we would write a book and make millions. But this is really about giving you the resources you need to deal with some of these unique challenges that parents face. So let's dive on in. Talking about tech, we're going to start with the negative. I want to say in just a second, I am going to get to some of the positive things related to technology and usage, but let's start with some of the negative. We can see that 81% of kids under 13 years old now have a device of their own. That means before they're even a teenager, over 80% of children have a device that is actually theirs, that is theirs alone, that they can use to access technology, maybe watch videos, maybe communicate with other people. And so there are pros and cons to this. Some of the negative effects we see, and I will just note, if you see little QR codes on this, those are links to some of the resources that are referenced on these slides. If you have questions about them or want more, feel free to email me. I'm happy to send you more information. But some of the negative, according to the CDC, as of July 2025, teenagers with higher non-schoolwork screen time, so screen time that they have outside of the classroom or outside of education, were more likely to experience a series of adverse health outcomes, including infrequent physical activity, infrequent strength training, being infrequently well rested. I'm having a hard time saying that today. Having an irregular sleep routine, weight concerns, depression symptoms, anxiety symptoms, infrequent social and emotional support, and insufficient peer support. Here's what that means. If there are too much in the way of screens, then some of these things are likely or even probable that kids will suffer with some or all of these symptoms. So it doesn't, I mean, none of these are totally shocking, right? If you're sitting in front of a screen, you're probably not out doing something physical or being careful to give your body the exercise and the movement that it needs, which is going to obviously have an impact on things like weight, depression, anxiety. Too many screens does overstimulate the brain, which can increase anxiety, can disrupt sleep. And obviously, if we are staying up and looking at things and being kind of hooked to what we're watching, we're less likely to get as much sleep as we need, let alone having that stimulated brain activity, making it difficult to sleep effectively. Insufficient peer support. This can vary, but if we are looking to screens in games and videos and things like that, instead of interacting with other people, this can have a real negative effect. We need human interaction. And so this is a really big thing for kids, especially as they're developing. All right, let's keep going. According to the National Institute of Health, there may be many possible positive outcomes for the use of technology by children and teens, like social support and connection. This is pretty easy to consider, right? We are separated from our friends when we're children. We live at home. We are not with our friends all the time. And so if we are trying to figure out, hey, how do I interact with other people? How do I communicate? How do I resolve conflict? How do I talk to people and figure out who I am? Which is really children, and especially as they age into being teens, it's very important that they're able to navigate some of this. And really, phones and FaceTime and things like that do offer connection and possibility for that connection. Even when kids are young, when there is distance among family or something like that, this gives an opportunity for connection, right? It can be really great to be able to talk to those grandparents or that aunt and uncle that you aren't able to see on a regular basis, or, maybe even a parent who is overseas or something like that. And so technology does provide connection and social support sometimes. Creative expression and identity exploration. Access to technology has the opportunity to give outlets for people creatively and as they're exploring their identity. We have access to tons of information, which is, it does actually say that in the next line here, but we have access to tons of information online. And though that does need to be monitored and within sort of boundaries, right? Like that's what we're talking about when we talk about parenting in this. Some of it can be really good, right? We can have an outlet for creatively expressing ourselves. And as children and teens, that is a really big part of developing identity. One of the main roles, or I guess one of the main goals of a teen is figuring out who they are, right? If we're looking at stages of development, that's exactly what's happening in the teen years. If people can figure out who they are, and it's that main time when they're starting to say, oh, my family is one big part of my foundation, but look, I can interact with these different people and I can figure out what I like and don't like and how I want to present myself and who I am as a person in relation to the world. And, they are growing parts of their brain that are really helpful for that too. And so all of that is really important. And they can see new things and different things through technology. They can explore different things. Healthy habit, motivation, access to information. Obviously access to information, which has a letter missing there, is really, really important for understanding and development. It can also be a negative, but healthy habit motivation, right? If you want to know how to do something, I mean, how many AI commercials have you seen recently where they're like, hey, how do I create a healthy study routine? And it'll walk them right through it on the commercial. And there are some things like that are really good. Or do you need a community of people to help you be motivated to exercise or be motivated to get things done that you want to get done? You have means to both find that information online and also find a community of people to support you in that. So there's really good things that way. Problem solving and skill development. One of the wonderful things about technology is that it's only going to get more and more useful over the years moving forward. And for kids especially, this is going to be an important thing that they learn how to use these skills, that they learn how to solve problems with technology, how to develop the skills they need to succeed in life and work moving forward into the future. All right, screen time is not a dirty word. So the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychology provides some useful guidelines for finding the sweet spot for screen time based on age of your child. There's a QR code for that right here. Basically, screen time isn't a dirty word, right? Like it is going to be a part of our lives. Technology is a part of our lives. It's really difficult to fully remove ourselves from that or remove our children from that. However, there are different amounts of screen time that are useful or helpful or can move into harmful as we age. As children age, there are different things that are recommended. I have noticed that the American Association of Pediatrics and the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychology have actually moved away from specific number of hours and have focused on what works for different families with some sort of parameters, right? And the general idea is this. When children are young, it is better for them to have less screen time, specifically less unmonitored, uninterrupted screen time. So, for example, it is fine for them to watch a cartoon here and there. It is fine for them to sit with a parent and call the grandparent and have that kind of screen time. It is fine for them to watch a movie with their family. It is fine for them to do an education game with mom. Like there are different things that are probably useful and appropriate uses of screens. And then there is just sitting and watching a screen nonstop and not engaging with other people. Children, especially when they are very young, really, really need that interpersonal interaction to learn how to work in the world. Their brain is developing and they need to actually learn how to mirror, connect with other people, recognize facial expressions, recognize how to respond appropriately in a situation. All of that is really important. As they grow, there's kind of an increasing ability to engage screens more or in more different ways. But all of it, I guess the goal of this entire presentation is to encourage people to all of it with some amount of boundary or monitoring, right? And I'm going to get into some of the practical stuff here in just a second. And then as they get older, it's appropriate for there to be more freedom, kind of the same way that we, as we are raising kids in general, give more freedom as they age so that they can learn to make choices, so that they can learn to choose and make decisions, because those are the things that are going to serve them later in life, but to help them learn how to use screens in a healthy way and not in a way that's going to lead to some of those negative effects we talked about earlier. the American Association of Pediatrics, this other little QR code here, actually has a pretty good interactive resource on, it has you fill in the blanks, right? Like about your family and the needs of your family, and it can come up with a family media plan with you. Obviously, it's flexible. You can adjust this based on your needs, but it's a really nice starting place to look at, okay, what does my family need? Is my child doing school at home? Am I not around very much? And so I need to figure out what that looks like. It will help you create that family media plan that makes sense for your family. All right, let's get practical here. I will say, I guess let's jump into this. So 5 specific tips, how and why to set boundaries. The first one here, it says set time limits to reduce the impact on brain development and anxiety. So there's a popular book out right now, or at least it's been pretty popular recently, called The Anxious Generation. It almost left my head. And it basically goes through some of the more recent research that identifies, as the brain is developing, if we are stimulating it in this way all the time, that it increases that faster stimulated activity and creates a pattern of that, which will keep a brain moving up, 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 almost in a fight or flight state, which produces this experience of anxiety. And so it's almost like it is developing a brain into an anxious brain through constant exposure to stimulus, if that makes sense. So I won't get into the deep in the weeds on the science of that, but basically, if you're on technology too much growing up, it will actually create a pattern in your brain that makes you feel more anxious, which is, we're seeing a ton as there are other reasons that anxiety might develop, including exposure to different stimuli, expectations, things like that. But anxiety is a real potential outcome of not having limits on how much time you're spending in front of a screen. So brain development and anxiety. Time limits are varied. Again, we just talked about them a minute ago, and they're going to be different for every person and every need and every age. However, they are very, very important, not only for children, but for adults. And it's something that we can model as adults and then help our kids have, so that their brains are not impacted in that same way, so that they are able to interact with others. Monitor activity. So this is a big one. One of the things that can be easy for us to do is to assume that if we just kind of look at what's going on every now and then, that we know what's going on. I would encourage parents to find a monitoring app or some kind of device that turns everything off, or some kind of app or company that's going to monitor different activity. For example, we use a specific one called Bark. There are many others on the market. But what happens is we can set it up so that it monitors all of the searching on search engines. We can set it up so that it monitors texting and other activities, so that it monitors game activity and social media activity, and it sends us updates and notifications when there's something on there that is, it could be bullying related, predator related, exposure to sexuality, violence, things like that. And so we're going to get notifications on that, and we're able to go and see what's happening, why it's happening, when it happened, have conversations with our kids, but then also shut down things that maybe we need to shut down, right? There are obviously ways your kids can go around that. And so just a general monitoring is really important. Kids aren't having those conversations is going to be really important, but it's also important to help them understand, they might not see that predator is actually grooming them, right? They might not know that that's what's happening when somebody's just making friends with them online, or they might not recognize that bullying is something they need to bring up with you, or maybe they're ashamed or afraid to bring it up with you, or maybe they saw something and they're ashamed or afraid to bring it up to you, and they are interested or curious and keep looking. And these are things that you can, through a little bit of monitoring, right, really prevent some of the negative effects of these things. Is it going to be something that children are going to face at some point, right? They're going to have to be exposed to things at a certain point, but hopefully we can prevent the really negative things from being exposed to those really negative things, and protect them from what they don't even know to look for, right? Especially as they're younger, but then as they age, more and more just being able to open up the doors to that conversation, like, hey, I saw your friend texted you this, talk to me about that. Decide with kids. So this tip is really important too, especially as they age. When they're younger, it is easier to decide for them, have really firm lines and say, these are the rules. If you don't do them, this is the consequence. As they age, we're doing the same thing. But all along the way, there's this element of, We want children to learn how to choose. We want them to learn how to critically think about things and choose. And obviously, it's going to be age appropriate, but that is true with technology also. And so, when they are young, helping them understand why we are giving them the boundaries they have, helping them choose might look like you may watch this or this. Which one do you choose? Or you can choose to watch TV now or watch TV later, but you cannot have both, giving very simple choices. As they age, those choices can become more complex. For example, in my family, we decided to sit down and write a contract together with my teenager to decide, okay, we want you to have this many hours. Let's talk about why that is. That you are allowed to use technology, for this amount of time, these things you're allowed this much. And we basically made a simple contract that we all signed and said, these are the rules, these are the consequences if you don't live by those rules. And then we put it up on the fridge, and so everybody knows what the rules are. We have agreed to it. We had decided together. We talked about the reasons we decided something. We let them have feedback in why we were deciding it, and we came to an agreement. Obviously, we have more sway than our child in this circumstance, but the idea is the more choice and control you give them, one, you're helping them to think critically about it. Two, you're helping them to learn how to make choices, which is, again, the whole point of this. We want our children to learn how to make choices because as they age out of living at home with us and as they launch into the world, we want them to critically think and make choices on their own and understand why having boundaries is really important in areas of life, including technology. But then we also want for there to be boundaries. We want to help them create those while we are still the ones who are able to. All right, give alternatives. This is really big. So, to reduce boredom and build creative thinking, I don't know about you all, but whenever we do take technology away, right, it's so entertaining. It's fantastic. It's the most fun. When we take it away, there's a whole lot of, oh, I'm so bored. I don't know what to do. And so we've come up with basically giving alternatives. And look, I do not do this perfectly. I just want to throw that out there in general. I don't do any of this perfectly, but these are really good tips that are useful when they're done well and effectively and consistently. Giving alternatives is a great one because you can do this with your child. You can come up with different things that they like, or you could just do this on your own if they're not very good at it on their own and say, okay, here are the alternatives. I'll give examples from my house. We have a list of alternatives. You can walk the dog. You can go in the backyard and play with the dog. You can go outside and touch grass for a little while, play sports of some kind, like we have. You can throw the baseball with your brother. You can do a variety of sports activities, right? You can do your chores. We have household chores that you're able to do. We have a book that you can read. We have cards you can play. We have games you can play. There are a lot of things. And so we have a list of 10 to 15 things that people, and so when they say, I'm so bored, we'll say, hey, go look at that list and pick something to do. It's really, really simple. And there's no opportunity for boredom if there's a list of things you can do. I mean, if all else fails, just go walk around the neighborhood. I mean, obviously, if they're older, walk around the neighborhood. If they're younger, here's some Legos, like whatever it is that your child might like. And creative thinking is really good because it's going to help them solve the problems of boredom. It's not really boredom, right? It is somebody has been entertaining me and now I'm forced to do something else. It's going to give them an opportunity to reduce some of that stimulation, to come down to a more grounded and creative space, to do something else with their brain that is going to be really, really good. And finally, engage socially. And this is a really big part of why too much technology can be negative. All of these things are. And pulling it away so that you can engage interpersonally is really important. We have social nervous systems. And if you end up watching the one that Dr. Margaret Smith is doing on this parenting series, she's going to be talking about the nervous system of your child and yourself, right? And how to deal with those things. But engaging socially is very, very important for brain development, for interpersonal development, right? We know, and you've heard it, little kids need to engage with other people to learn how to speak, to learn how to act, all of those things. We are not that different as we age and our brain develops and our bodies develop. We need to learn all over again as we go in different stages how to engage socially, even so much so that we actually have mirroring neurons in our brain, right? And we need to learn how to mirror other people. Plus, it's very, very important because it balances our nervous system. If we engage with other people and have interpersonal connections, it's going to enable us to be able to live balanced and more calm and more connected and more attached in life if we engage socially. So there are ways we can do that with our children as we are parenting, right? Modeling behavior. Some of the alternatives might be like, hey, I'll sit and play cards with you, or I will sit with you and do this thing, or whatever it is. Or, hey, why isn't one of the things on your list? Why don't you go down the street and knock on your friend's door and see if they want to go play basketball for a little while, or want to sit and talk for a little bit, whatever it is. I have boys, so I think automatically the more active things. But all of these are options. So I'm going to wrap us up here and say, feel free to email me or ask any information if you have more questions about any of this, or if you want more research, background, anything like that. But I will just end by saying, all of these are ideas in order to help you. And there is no perfect parenting, right? If there were a checklist of, if I do this, this, and this, then technology will not be an issue in my house, then I would totally take that information from you. But the idea is, you really, the same as it is with anything in terms of parenting, it is, how can I help my child grow into the person that I hope that they will become? And what do I need to do today to help them develop that and grow into that? When they're very little, obviously some of their needs are different, but as they grow, they become more and more interactive in their ability to, again, critically think and problem solve. And they learn that from an early age. We model it. Even in our own technology use and behavior. I will give just a couple more examples as I wrap up here. One of the things that we do in order to set limits is we turn our Wi-Fi off at night. It means that none of our TVs work. It means that the computers don't work. And then we have our kids put their devices in our room in the evening so that they don't have access to it, which helps with sleep patterns, which helps with routine. And the rules are strict. So if they do not do that, then we know that those devices are gone the next day. And if they don't do it a second time, they're gone for the week. And we have some pretty, again, clarified and simple rules. But the idea of all of this that we don't do perfectly, I'll throw out there again, is that we want for them to understand boundaries and to practice those, because those will be the foundation of how they set boundaries for themselves in the future. So I hope that this has been helpful. If you have other questions or want other resources, please feel free to reach out.